had seen many species walk through the doors of Station 7. He had watched the proud with their golden scales. He had observed the massive, each one standing 3 times taller than most beings. He had even met the ancient, whose minds could touch the thoughts of others. In his 200 years as a diplomatic observer, believed he had seen everything the galaxy could offer. Then the humans arrived, and he almost laughed. They were small, not the smallest species he had ever seen, but close enough. They had only 2 arms, 2 legs, and soft skin that looked like it would tear at the slightest touch. Their eyes were tiny compared to eyes, and they moved slowly, carefully, as if afraid of breaking themselves. Stood on the observation deck with his fellow, all 4 of his arms crossed over his chest. Below them, the human shuttle had just finished docking. The airlock opened with a soft hiss, and the first human stepped onto the station. There were only 5 of them. The one in front was a female, dressed in simple dark clothing. Her black hair was pulled back from her face, and she walked with her head held high. Behind her stood a male with a face and cold eyes. He wore a military uniform and carried no weapons that could see. The other 3 appeared to be assistants of some kind. "Those are the humans?" asked a young standing beside. "They look like prey animals." Made a sound of agreement. "They are a young species, only a few hundred years in space. They have not yet learned their place." He had read the reports on humanity. They came from a small blue world near the edge of the galaxy. They lived short lives, rarely more than 100 years. They could not regrow lost limbs. They needed to sleep for a third of each day. Their bodies broke easily and healed slowly. By every measure they used to judge a species, humans were weak. And yet, something about the way the female walked made pause. She did not look afraid. She did not look impressed by the massive station around her. She looked at the gathered aliens the same way might look at furniture. The welcoming ceremony was brief. The human female introduced herself as ambassador. Her voice was soft but clear, and she spoke the common galactic language without any accent. The male behind her was called her military. He said nothing at all. He simply watched. Notice that eyes never stopped moving. They jumped from face to face, door to door, shadow to shadow. It was the behavior of a soldier, but also the behavior of a predator, or perhaps prey that had learned to fight back. The real business came 3 days later. The Dominion had sent their own delegation to 7. They were standing on 6 legs with bodies covered in black armor. They had conquered over 40 species in their long history. No one challenged them. No one dared. Was present when the ambassador, a creature called, met with ambassador. The meeting room was large and cold, filled with observers from a dozen species. Everyone wanted to see what would happen when the young humans met the ancient killers. Wasted no time. His voice was like metal scraping against stone. Humanity has expanded into territory claimed by the Dominion. You have 3 colonies in our space. You will surrender them. Sat calmly in her chair, stood behind her like a statue. "The Dominion made no claim to those systems until we arrived," she said. "Our colonies are legal under galactic law." "Galactic law means nothing to the," replied. "We take what we want. We always have. You are young and do not understand how the universe works, so I will explain it simply." He leaned forward, his many eyes fixed on space. "Surrender your colonies. Remove your people. Give us what we demand. If you do not, we will come to your worlds. We will burn your cities. We will eat your children while you watch. Then we will burn you too." The room was silent. Every observer held their breath, had seen this before. Young species always surrendered. They had no choice. They were too powerful, too cruel, too numerous to fight. Was quiet for a long moment. Her face showed no fear. Her hands did not shake. She simply looked at the way someone might look at an insect crawling across their floor. Then she smiled. "No," she said. The word hung in the air. Felt his heart skip a beat. He must have heard wrong. No species said no to it was suicide. made a clicking sound that might have been surprise. "You refuse." "We decline your offer," said, her voice still calm and polite. "Our colonies will remain where they are. Our people will stay in their homes. If the Dominion wishes to change this, you are welcome to try." She stood up, straightening her clothing with unhurried movements. "But I should warn you," she added, almost as an afterthought. "Humanity does not surrender. We have never surrendered. We have a saying on our world: we do not go quietly into the night." She turned and walked toward the door, falling into step beside her. At the threshold, she paused and looked back. "Ambassador, if you come to our worlds with war, we will give you war. The kind of war your species has never seen. The kind of war that ends civilizations." Then she was gone. The room remained silent for a long time, looked at the other observers. He saw confusion on some faces, amusement on others. The ambassador was shaking his head slowly, clearly thinking the humans had just signed their death warrant. But notice something else. The ambassador, the oldest being in the room, had gone very still. Her ancient eyes were fixed on the door where had disappeared, and on her face was an expression had never seen before on a. It was fear. Felt cold suddenly. They were the oldest species in the galaxy. They remembered things that others had forgotten. They knew secrets that others had never learned. What did they know about humans that did not? He looked at the door again, thinking of that small female with her soft skin and short life. He thought of her smile when she said no. He thought of cold, watching eyes. For the first time in his long life, wondered if he had made a terrible mistake in judging a species by their appearance. The fleet was beautiful in a terrible way. 400 warships moved through space like a swarm of metal insects. Their dark hulls blocked out the stars behind them. Their weapons glowed with hungry light. Watched them from the observation deck of his vessel, and he felt nothing but pity for the humans who waited below. The planet was called New. It was a small colony world with only 2 million people. They had farms and factories and schools and homes. They had children who played in green parks and old people who sat in the sun. In a few hours, thought, they would all be dead. His mission was simple. The council wanted him to document the human defeat. They wanted to study how they conquered a new species. It would be useful information for future negotiations. Expected the battle to last a few hours at most. The humans had only 30 ships defending the planet. Their technology was inferior. Their soldiers were soft and breakable. This would be a slaughter, not a war. The first ships entered the planet's atmosphere on a bright morning. They descended toward the largest city like falling stars. Their weapons began firing before they even landed, turning buildings into dust and people into ash. But then something strange happened. The humans fired back. Not just the military ships in orbit, not just the soldiers in their bases. Everyone fired back, watched in confusion as civilian vehicles rammed into landing craft. He saw factory workers using industrial tools as weapons. He saw teachers leading children to safety while firing guns over their shoulders. They took the first city in 6 hours, but they lost 2,000 soldiers to take it. An acceptable loss, perhaps, but unusual. Young species usually surrendered after the first hour. The humans did not surrender. Day after day, watched the battle continue. They advanced across the planet, burning everything in their path, but every step cost them lives. Every building hid traps. Every road was a kill zone. On the 7th day, witnessed something that would haunt him forever. A battalion had cornered a group of human soldiers in an underground tunnel network. There were perhaps 200 humans against 3,000. The outcome was obvious. The humans would die. Then the tunnel collapsed. The humans had placed explosives throughout the entire network. When they came in, the humans brought the mountain down on top of everyone, including themselves. 3,000 died in seconds, so did 200 humans. They killed themselves to kill their enemies. Could not understand it. What species destroyed itself to harm another? What kind of minds thought that way? He began searching through human historical records, trying to understand. What he found made his blood run cold. Humans had been killing each other long before they reached the stars. They had weapons called nuclear bombs that could destroy entire cities. They had created these weapons and then used them on themselves. They had fought wars that killed millions of their own kind. They had a concept called mutually assured destruction, which meant that if one group died, they would make sure their enemies died too. They had words for things that could not translate into language. Scorched earth, which meant burning your own land so your enemies could not use it. Pyrrhic victory, which meant a win that cost so much it felt like losing. Last stand, which meant fighting until death because surrender was not acceptable. These were not the words of a weak species. These were the words of something very dangerous. On the 12th day, a human pilot named did something impossible. His fighter ship was badly damaged. His weapons were empty. The command vessel hung in space before him, directing the entire invasion. A normal pilot would have retreated. A normal pilot would have called for help. Flew his ship directly into the command vessel's engine core. The explosion destroyed the entire ship. 4,000 died in an instant, including their fleet commander. Died too, of course. He must have known he would die. He did it anyway. Pulled up's file. He was 26 years old. He had a wife on another planet. He had a daughter he had never met. He had written a message before his final flight and read it with shaking hands. "Tell my daughter I love her," had written. "Tell her I died so she could live free. Tell her that her father was not afraid." He was not afraid. Closed the file and sat in silence for a long time. The battle for Nu lasted 19 days. 19 days of constant fighting, constant death, constant horror. They had never fought so hard for a single planet. They had never lost so many soldiers to such a small enemy. In the end, they always won. They planted their flag in the ashes of the last human city and declared victory. But looked at the numbers, and he saw something troubling. The humans had started with 30 ships. They had destroyed them all, but in destroying them, they lost 60 ships of their own. The humans had 2 million people on the planet. Most of them died, but they took almost 100,000 with them. They had won the battle, but they had lost 60% of their invasion force to take a single colony world. Humanity had 50 colony worlds. If every world fought like Nu, they would run out of soldiers before they finished. Thought about the human word for this kind of victory, Pyrrhic, a win that felt like losing. He looked down at the burning planet below, at the smoke rising from human cities, at the bodies of children lying in the streets. He thought about flying into the fire. He thought about soldiers collapsing tunnels on their own heads. For the first time, understood something terrible. They had not won this battle. They had simply paid a price that humans were willing to accept. And somewhere out there in the dark spaces between stars, more humans were watching, learning, waiting. They would come back Nu. They would always come back because humans did not surrender. They did not forgive. They did not forget. And they were very, very good at war. 6 months had passed since Nu fell. They had taken 3 more human colonies in that time. They moved through human space like a fire through dry grass, burning everything they touched. Their reports spoke of total victory. Their commanders celebrated with feasts of human flesh. Read every report carefully. He noticed things that the commanders did not. The humans were not fighting as hard as they had at Nu. Their resistance was weaker. Their ships retreated instead of ramming into enemies. Their soldiers surrendered instead of dying in place. The thought this meant the humans were breaking. They thought humanity had learned fear. Was not so sure. He remembered's calm smile. He remembered's watching eyes. He remembered the ambassador's fear. These were not the signs of a species that broke easily. So where had the humans gone? The answer came on a cold morning in deep space. Was aboard his observation vessel, following the supply fleet. These ships carried food and weapons and soldiers to the front lines. Without them, the invasion would stop. They protected them with 50 warships, more than enough to fight off any human attack. Then the stars began to move. Thought he was seeing things at first. The darkness between stars seemed to shift and twist. Points of light appeared where no light should be. Then his sensors screamed warnings and he understood. Human ships, hundreds of human ships. They had been hiding in the void, running dark, waiting. The attack lasted 12 minutes. The human fleet struck like a hammer from the darkness. Their weapons were different now, stronger, faster. Their tactics were perfect, like they had practiced this attack 1,000 times. They destroyed the escort ships first, then turned on the supply vessels. Not one ship escaped, not one. Watched in stunned silence as the human fleet vanished back into the dark. They did not stay to celebrate. They did not take prisoners. They simply killed everything and disappeared like ghosts. Over the next 3 months, it happened again and again. Human fleets appeared from nowhere and struck without warning. They attacked supply lines and communication relays. They destroyed breeding worlds where new soldiers were grown. They hit targets that the thought were secret, hidden, impossible to find. The commanders did not understand. How did the humans know where to strike? How did they move so quickly? Where had these fleets come from? Found the answers in captured human records. The ships had been built in hidden shipyards, in the empty spaces between stars where no one thought to look. The humans had started building them years ago, long before the war began. They had planned for this. They had prepared for this. The commander of the human fleet was a woman named, studied her file with growing respect and fear. She was 53 years old. She had been a soldier for 30 years. She had lost her husband on Nu. Her tactics were cold and precise. She never attacked when she could not win. She never showed mercy when she did not need to. She struck at the weakest points with the strongest force, again and again, until her enemies bled out. One battle stood out in his mind. A commander named had tried to negotiate with. He had offered to return human prisoners in exchange for a ceasefire. It seemed like a reasonable offer. His response was a single audio file. Listened to it once, he would never listen to it again. The file contained recordings from Nu, recordings of human colonists dying, recordings of children screaming as they ate them alive, recordings of mothers begging for mercy that never came. Had played these sounds for, then she had said 4 words, "Continue firing, no survivors." His fleet was destroyed, every ship, every soldier, no prisoners, no mercy. Understood then, this was not war as he knew it, this was revenge. This was hate given form and purpose. He needed to understand more. He needed to know why humans fought this way. His chance came when a human soldier was captured near the front lines. The soldier's name was. He was young, perhaps 25 years old, with a friendly face and quiet eyes. They had tortured him for information, but he had said nothing useful. Was allowed to question him through the bars of his cell. "Why do you fight like this?" asked. "Why so much cruelty? Why so much sacrifice?" Looked at him with confusion, like the question made no sense. "They attacked our homes," said simply. "They killed our families, they ate our children." "But the cost," pressed. "Your people are dying by the millions, your colonies are burning. Would it not be better to surrender, to survive?" His face changed. The friendly look disappeared. Something cold and hard took its place. "Let me ask you something," said. "If someone hurt your family, would you stop hunting them because it was hard? Would you forgive them because fighting was expensive?" Did not answer. He did not know how to answer. "We do not fight because we want to," continued. "We fight because we have to, because if we do not, they will do this again. They will hurt someone else's children, someone else's home." He stood up and walked to the bars. His eyes locked on space. We are not cruel because we enjoy it. We are cruel because it works. Because the next species that thinks about attacking humanity will remember what happened to the... They will remember the price we made them pay, and they will choose peace instead. Smiled, and it was not a friendly smile anymore. You wanted to know why we fight this way. That is why. We are teaching the galaxy a lesson, and we are very, very good teachers. Left the cell with words echoing in his mind. He thought about he thought about flying into fire. He thought about playing recordings of dying children. Humans did not see their violence as exceptional. They saw it as obvious, as natural, as necessary. That was the most frightening thing of all. 2 years. The war had lasted 2 years. Stood on the observation deck of a neutral vessel, watching the impossible happen. Below him, the of Nexus Prime filled the viewport like a dark jewel. Billions have lived on that world. Their queen ruled from a palace that had stood for 3,000 years. Their empire had never been conquered. Their species had never known defeat. Today that would change. The human fleet hung in space like a wall of steel and fire. 3,000 warships, more than anyone had thought possible. They had come from every corner of human space, gathering in secret, waiting for this moment. At their head was the flagship of Fleet Admiral. Had studied file. She was 60 years old. She had served in the human military for 40 years. She had a son named Minu who had died on Nu. He was 17 years old. He had been studying to become a teacher. They had eaten him, while his mother watched through a satellite feed. Had not spoken publicly since that day. She did not give interviews. She did not make speeches. She simply built her fleet, trained her soldiers, and waited. Now she was here. The Queen's message came through on all channels. Her voice was different from others, smoother, almost musical. She spoke of peace. She spoke of understanding. She spoke of returning all captured human territory. She spoke of paying for the damage done. We offer these terms in good faith, the Queen said. We recognize that mistakes were made. We wish only for peace between our peoples. Thought the terms were generous, more than generous. They were offering everything the humans had asked for. Surely this was enough. Surely this could end the war. His response came after a long silence. You taught us what you are, she said. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. We learned. The weapons began firing. What followed was not a battle, had seen battles. He understood battles. This was something else. This was an ending. The human fleet did not fight like any fleet had ever seen. They moved as one, thousands of ships acting with a single purpose. They did not target military installations. They did not aim for strategic points. They targeted everything. Gravity bombs fell on cities. These weapons did something that could not understand. They made gravity heavier, denser, crushing. Buildings collapsed like paper. Bodies were pressed flat against the ground. Entire hive structures folded in on themselves, killing millions in seconds. Biological weapons came next. The humans had created diseases that only affected biology. The sicknesses spread through the air, through the water, through touch. Healthy fell dead within hours. No cure, no treatment, no hope. Autonomous drones swarmed across the planet's surface. They were small, no bigger than a human hand, and they hunted without rest. They could track by their body heat, their chemical signatures, even the sound of their heartbeats. They killed for weeks after the main attack ended. Watched the burn and felt something he had never felt before. Not fear, not horror, something worse. He felt awe. The humans had created weapons specifically for this moment. They had studied them for 2 years, learning their weaknesses, their biology, their psychology. Then they had built machines of perfect destruction. And they used them without hesitation. The Queen tried to surrender. Her palace was hit by 17 gravity bombs at once. The entire structure compressed into a ball of metal and flesh no larger than a transport ship. 30 million died in that single moment. including their queen. The last message from Nexus Prime was a distress call from a small shelter in the planet's northern region. Young, children by their species standards, begged for mercy. They said they had not fought in the war. They said they were innocent. Fleet commander, a young man named, asked what to do. "Follow orders," replied, "no exceptions." The shelter was destroyed. The children died. The distress call went silent. Turned away from the viewport. He could not watch anymore, but he could still hear the sounds of the dying world through the ship's speakers, screams and explosions and the terrible silence that followed. The next 3 days were the same. Human ships moved from target to target, destroying everything that moved: military bases, civilian centers, hiding places. Nothing was spared. When it was over, Nexus Prime was silent. Not defeated, silent. The difference mattered. Understood now what they had known all along. Humans did not fight to win. They fought to end. They fought until their enemies could never threaten them again. They had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had conquered 40 species. They had never lost a war. In 2 years, the humans had unmade them completely. Other worlds fell over the next 6 months. Some fought. Most simply surrendered and prayed for mercy. Some received it. Others did not. It depended on factors that could not understand, decisions made by human commanders based on human logic that no alien could follow. When it was over, the Dominion no longer existed. Their worlds were empty or burning. Their fleets were debris. Their people survived only in small groups, refugees begging for protection from the very species that had destroyed them. Some humans wanted to finish the job, finish the species, make sure they could never rise again. In the end, humanity showed mercy. They allowed the survivors to live, scattered across distant worlds, stripped of power and pride. It was not kindness, it was a message. This is what happens when you hurt us. This is what happens when you threaten our children. We do not just defeat you, we erase you. But if you surrender, if you bow, if you break completely, we might let you live. Looked at the data on his screen. Population of the Dominion before the war, 40 billion. Population after, less than 1 billion. The humans had killed 39 billion sentient beings in 2 years. And they had done it with calm efficiency, without rage, without passion. They had done it the way someone might clean a stain from their floor. Unpleasant work, but necessary work. Closed his file and sat in the darkness of his quarters. He thought about Smile at that first meeting. He thought about her words, the kind of war that ends civilizations. She had not been threatening, she had been warning. No one had listened. 3 years had passed since the end of the war. Stood in the great chamber of the Galactic Council, looking at the faces of 11 species. They had come from across the galaxy to hear his report. They had come to learn about humanity. The chamber was silent. Every seat was filled. Every eye was on. He had never felt so small. He thought about everything he had seen. New burning, flying into fire. Cold Smile. Nexus Prime crushing itself into silence. 39 billion dead in 2 years. How could he explain any of it? He began with the simple facts. Humans are not strong, he said. Their bodies are fragile. Their lives are short. A single could kill 10 humans in physical combat. A single could kill 100. The council members nodded. They knew this already. They had always known this. But humans do not fight with their bodies, continued. They fight with their minds, and their minds are unlike anything we have ever seen. He pulled up images on the central display. Images of human history, wars that had killed millions of their own kind, weapons that could destroy planets, strategies that sacrificed thousands to save millions. They have been killing each other since before they learned to write. They have developed more weapons of war than any other species in the galaxy. They do not see violence as unusual. They see it as normal, as natural. The ambassador raised a scaled hand. Many species have violent histories. What makes humans different? Paused. This was the hard part, the part that had kept him awake for 3 years. Two things, he said finally. First, their memory. Humans do not forget. Other species move on from old wounds. Humans keep their wounds forever. They pass them down to their children. A hurt done to a human's grandfather can drive a human to revenge 100 years later. He thought of watching her son die on a satellite feed. He thought of her waiting 2 years, building her fleet, saying nothing. Patient, cold, unforgiving. Second, their capacity for love. The council chamber stirred. This was not what they expected. Humans love their families in a way that other species do not understand, explained. They will die for strangers. They will kill for family. They made a terrible mistake when they attacked human children. They turned every human in the galaxy into an enemy, not because of territory, not because of resources, because of love. He showed them's final message. Tell my daughter I love her. Tell her I died so she could live free. This pilot killed 4,000 with his death. He did it for a daughter he had never met. He did it gladly, without fear. The chamber was silent again. Humans are dangerous because they love, said. And when you hurt what they love, that love becomes hate. And there is no hate in the galaxy stronger than human hate. The ambassador spoke for the first time. Her voice was old, tired, heavy with knowledge. We have seen this before. Everyone turned to look at her. They were the oldest species. They remembered things that others had forgotten. Long ago, before your species reached the stars, there was another species like the humans. They loved deeply. They hated fiercely. They remembered everything. She closed her eyes. They burned half the galaxy before they destroyed themselves. We had hoped we would never see such a species again. She opened her eyes and looked directly at. But humans are different. They are more controlled, more patient. They do not destroy themselves. They only destroy their enemies. She paused. This makes them more dangerous, not less. The council chamber broke into noise. Representatives shouted questions and concerns. Some called for action against humanity. Others called for immediate alliances. Waited for silence. I have not finished my report, he said. The chamber quieted. I told you about human hate. Now I will tell you about human loyalty. He showed them different images now. Human doctors treating alien diseases. Human engineers building stations for other species. Human soldiers dying to protect non-human refugees. When humans call you friend, they mean it. They will fight for you. They will die for you. They will stand beside you against any enemy, no matter how powerful. He thought of offering trade agreements with a warm smile. He thought of standing guard without being asked, protecting alien diplomats simply because it was right. The humans are not our enemies unless we make them so. They do not want war, they want peace. They want trade, they want friendship. He looked around the chamber at the worried faces of 11 species. My recommendation is simple. Do not threaten what they love. Do not harm what they protect. Trade with them, befriend them. Earn their loyalty and they will die for you. He paused. But if you make them your enemy, understand this. They will not stop. They will not forgive. They will hunt you across centuries and stars, and when your children's children have forgotten why the war began, humans will still remember. They will still come. He turned off the display and stood in silence. That is my report. The council did not move. No one spoke. Outside the great windows, stars burned in the darkness of space. After a long moment, the doors to the chamber opened. A human delegation entered, led by a familiar figure. Ambassador walked toward the council table with the same calm confidence remembered from 3 years ago. She was older now, with touches of gray in her black hair, but her smile was still warm. Her eyes were still kind. Behind her walked his face unchanged, his eyes still watching everything. bowed respectfully to the council. "Thank you for receiving us," she said. "Humanity comes in peace. We wish to discuss trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and mutual defense treaties." Her voice was gentle. Her manner was friendly. She looked like everyone's grandmother, everyone's favorite teacher, everyone's trusted friend. Watched her and he remembered Nexus Prime. He remembered the gravity bombs. He remembered the silence of 39 billion dead. This small, soft, fragile woman had ordered all of it, had watched all of it, had nodded in approval as worlds burned and species ended. And now she stood here, smiling, offering peace. The ambassador spoke first. His voice shook slightly. "We accept your offer of friendship, Ambassador. On behalf of the collective, we welcome humanity to the galactic community." One by one, the other species followed. Even the ancient, all of them accepting, all of them smiling, all of them hiding their fear behind diplomatic words. Thanked each one graciously, watched with quiet approval. When the ceremony ended, passed by on her way out, she paused and looked at him with those kind eyes. "Thank you for your report, Observer," she said. "It was very fair, very accurate." Managed a small bow. "I spoke only the truth, Ambassador." Smiled. It was the same smile she had given 3 years ago, right before she told him no. "The truth is important," she agreed. "It helps people make good decisions." She patted his arm gently and walked away, following silently behind. Watched her go. He thought about her smile. He thought about what it hid. He understood now what it meant to fear a smile. Outside, the stars burned on, ancient and cold. Somewhere among them, human ships sailed through the void. Human children played in green parks. Human soldiers stood guard over peaceful worlds. And the galaxy watched and remembered and learned. Never hurt what humans love. Never threaten what they protect. Because the stars had seen what happened to those who did. The stars remembered. And so would everyone else.